Early that morning, before the sun had even risen in San Jose, Ariana drove from San Francisco to her parents' house to pick them up at the airport. She was filled with excitement and pride. After 2 years of working overtime and saving every penny, she'd finally accomplished what she'd always dreamed of, taking her parents on a week-long luxury trip to Japan, complete with five-star hotels, business-class flights, and tours of Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka that she'd personally booked. When the car pulled up in front of their house, she stepped out, a cup of coffee she'd bought on the side of the road in her hand. The door opened and her mother, Linda, pulled out her suitcase with a big smile. "You're 2 minutes late," she joked, but Ariana just chuckled and stepped over to help her mother put the luggage in the trunk. And then she saw Chloe, her sister, casually dressed, dragging a pink suitcase, leisurely emerged from the house. The sight made Ariana feel like someone had punched her in the chest. She looked at her mother, then at Chloe, unable to hide her surprise and uncertainty. "What is Chloe doing here?" she asked, trying to keep her voice calm. Her mother just waved her hand, replying with a lightness that said, "Oh, we decided to let Chloe go in your place. She's been under a lot of stress lately. She really needs a vacation." Ariana was stunned. She tried to swallow the emotions that were rising, but inside she was breaking. "Instead of you, this is a trip I've been planning for 2 years. I paid for everything. But her mother just smiled, as if she didn't recognize the hurt in her voice. "We're very grateful, really, but you're always busy. You can travel on your own some other time." Chloe just shrugged, half smiling, half arrogant, as if bestowing a favor. "Thank you. I knew you would understand." Ariana stood still, her hand tightening on the trunk handle. All the sacrifices, the time, the money, the late nights, the refusal to go out with friends, all to give her parents an experience they never had. But in the end, they pushed her away, replaced her with someone who had been pampered and never tried. Ariana didn't argue, didn't cry. She just opened the trunk, loaded her luggage like a machine. "Let's go," she said, her voice cold, and got in the car and started it. If her parents had chosen Chloe, then fine. But she wasn't going to let them enjoy it on her own. Not this time. Not ever again. Ariana kept her face impassive all the way to the airport, though her insides burned. She swallowed her anger, focused on the wheel, listening to Chloe chatter behind her about Japanese foods she wanted to try and shopping plans in Ginza. Her mother sat beside her, nodding in approval, completely oblivious to her daughter's eerie silence. No one asked Ariana how she felt, not a word of thanks, not a hint of guilt. The trip she planned in detail for 2 years, every location, every meal, every luxury, had been snatched from her like a gift snatched back before it could be given. She glanced at her father in the rearview mirror, hoping he would at least protest the injustice. But he just stared out the window, silent as always, avoiding any conflict as if it didn't exist unless she faced the truth. Ariana had never been a priority in this family. She was the one who carried the load, the one who stood behind, the one who paid. And now, the gift she had painstakingly prepared with all her heart was being given to someone else without anyone thinking it was wrong. Chloe was chosen for being stressed, while she, the one who was financially responsible and working nonstop, was being told she was too busy to rest. When they arrived at the airport, Ariana helped her parents with their luggage like a machine. Her mother gave her a hug and said, "Thank you for understanding." Chloe waved and smiled, not a bit apologetically. Ariana just nodded, gave a tired smile, and walked back to the car. But when the door closed and the car rolled away from the airport, the smile disappeared. Her chest tightened. The feeling of betrayal, of being ignored, of being left out of her own family's life surged like waves. She stopped in a quiet parking lot on the side of the road, pulled her laptop from the back seat, and opened it with fingers shaking with anger. One by one, the reservation confirmation emails appeared. 5-star hotel in Tokyo, pre-booked kaiseki dinners, museum tickets, private tours, bullet train tickets. All of them were paid for by her. Without hesitation, Ariana began canceling each item. She entered the reason, change of personal plans. The refund confirmations appeared one by one, each one like a sharp knife cutting through the cord that bound her to patience. They had chosen Chloe over her. So Chloe would have to fend for herself in Japan. No hotel room, no guide, no tour service. Ariana wasn't doing this out of spite. She was doing it because for the first time in her life, she was choosing herself. And in the final moment of pressing the final cancel button, Ariana felt something quietly break inside her and then be replaced by unprecedented relief. As soon as she landed at Narita Airport, a series of calls and messages from her parents began pouring into Ariana's phone. The screen flashed with panic messages. Ariana, the hotel won't let you check in. They said there was no payment. Followed by, the tour guide doesn't see our names on the list. Call again, there must be a mistake. She looked at the glowing screen in her palm, calmly sipped the tea she was drinking, then put the phone down on the table without rushing to answer. Outside, the Seattle sun was dancing on the windows of her small apartment, thousands of miles away from the chaos her parents were facing. About 20 minutes later, the phone rang again. This time, it was a video call from her mother, Margaret, whose angry, exhausted face flashed as Ariana accepted the call. Ariana, what's going on? The hotel said someone canceled, and the tour guide doesn't have our name on it, no tickets, nothing. Did you do it? Her voice was high-pitched, like she was a child who had done something wrong. Behind her, Ariana saw Chloe sitting with her arms crossed, her face filled with anger. Ariana leaned back in her chair, not rushing, not making excuses. She looked straight into the camera, her voice soft as a breeze. Yes, I canceled everything. The silence stretched for a few seconds. Stunned. You what? Margaret shouted. Why? This is a family vacation. I promised I was prepared. I was prepared to come with you, Ariana interrupted, her voice still calm, each word cutting through the air like a knife. I spent 2 years planning a meaningful trip for us as a family. But at the last minute, you and I decided I didn't need it anymore. Well, I don't need to pay for it. On the other end of the line, Chloe chimed in. You're being petty, being childish. You're just jealous that I got picked. Ariana curled her lips, her eyes sharp. No, Chloe. I'm not jealous. I just see the truth. All these years, I've always been the one behind, and you've always been the first choice. I can't stop my parents from favoring me, but I can stop myself from being taken advantage of. Her father, Charles, finally spoke up. So what do we do now? Everything's canceled. We have no place to sleep. No one to pick us up? Ariana tilted her head slightly, as if she were talking about the weather. I think if you're going to take me off the trip, then you and Chloe should learn to fend for yourself, like I've had to do all my life. She hung up. The phone went silent. No more messages, no more rings. And in that moment, in the small room filled only with the hum of the air conditioner, Ariana smiled for the first time in days. The trip was no longer hers, and now, her life was no longer controlled by anyone else. The phone rang again in the middle of the night. Ariana squinted at the glowing screen in the darkness of her bedroom. It was Chloe. Part of her wanted to ignore it, but she pressed the answer button and held the phone to her ear without saying anything. The screams immediately pounded her eardrums. Stop being selfish. Do you know that this trip was a disaster because of you? All because you wouldn't give in to me. Chloe's voice shook with anger or shame. Ariana couldn't tell. She sat up, leaning back against the bed, her eyes glued to the blank wall in front of her, as if looking through the years of neglect. I didn't cancel the trip because I wouldn't give in. I canceled because I was discarded, she said evenly, not raising her voice, but each word cutting like a knife. I'm not selfish, Chloe. I just can't be a shadow anymore to serve someone else's needs. Before she could hang up, another call came in, Mom. Margaret. With a sigh, Ariana transferred the call. Ariana, her mother said, sounding both sobbing and angry, this is too far. We're family. No one treats their own like that. You can't just cut everything off over a small decision. Ariana narrowed her eyes. A small decision, she repeated. You took me off the trip I saved every penny for. You sent someone else without warning. And then you turn around and say I'm the one who betrayed the family. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. Margaret sighed. I just thought Chloe was having a hard time. And you were always fine. You were always strong. That statement, that excuse, reverberated through all the times she'd been silently abandoned, dismissed as the good kid. Just because you're strong doesn't mean you can't be hurt, Ariana replied, her voice no longer angry, just cold. You said no one would do that to family, but you did it to me first. In her mind, so many old images flashed. Her 18th birthday forgotten because Chloe had just gotten into college. The summer Ariana had to work while her parents took Chloe on a trip to Europe. All the evenings in the living room where she was left out of conversations about her sister's future. And it was always her, the one who worried, the one who cleaned, the one who silently endured. I'm not the firefighter anymore, Ariana said softly. I'm not the forgotten child who has to do everything to keep everyone safe. From now on, I choose to stand outside. A family shouldn't have just one person carrying everything in silence. She paused. I'm tired. Then she ended the call decisively, put the phone down, and for the first time in a long time, Ariana slept deeply. No more dreams, no more waiting for a text message of apology, no more vague hope of recognition from people who had never really seen her. After cutting off the constant calls from her family, Ariana found herself in a vast void. No more responsibilities to shoulder, no one waiting for her to fix everything. At first, the silence was confusing, but gradually, it felt like a gentle breeze seeping into every crevice of her mind, washing away the dust and fatigue that had accumulated over the years. She began writing again, keeping a diary every morning. The first pages were filled with anger, frustration, hurt. But then each line turned to curiosity about herself. She wrote down the things she had wanted to do, but had put off. Learn a new language, take photos, travel alone without having to schedule for anyone else. One morning, while sitting by the window with a hot cup of coffee, she searched for Learn Italian in San Francisco and immediately signed up for a basic class. A week later, she found a weekend photography course, something she had always used as an excuse to be too busy to avoid. Every time she stepped out of the classroom, she felt like she had touched a piece of the Ariana she had forgotten, the one who was curious, who loved to learn, who believed she deserved good things without having to repay anyone. And then one night, as she sat down to type out notes about the most beautiful places in Europe, Ariana opened the tab to book flights. At first, her hand hesitated. The idea of traveling alone had always seemed risky to her, but this time, her heart raced with excitement. She booked a round-trip ticket to Rome. No tour, no forced itinerary. Just her, a map, a camera, and time to herself. Ariana wasn't doing this to get back at her family. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone. This trip wasn't a declaration, nor a reward. It was simply a journey she was giving to herself, a gentle apology for letting others define her worth for so long. When she received the email confirming her flight, Ariana didn't jump for joy or cry with emotion. She just smiled, a peaceful smile, because after all, she was no longer the firefighter in a dysfunctional family. She was a woman who knew she was worthy, and this time, she chose herself first. After returning from Italy, Ariana opened her phone and saw a message waiting. Hope you have a good trip. Let's talk when you're ready. It was her mother. The tone was gentle, reserved. Not blaming, not demanding, but not exactly apologetic either. Ariana put the phone down on the kitchen table, not answering right away. She poured herself a glass of water, stepped out onto the balcony, and watched the afternoon light spread over the familiar rooftops of her San Francisco neighborhood. In the past, a text like that would have made her soften, and she would have hastily called back, trying to find a way to reconcile. But this time was different. She had been through too much to turn back with weakness. On every cobblestone street in Florence, in every frame she took in Venice, Ariana had learned that love cannot be based on obligation or guilt. She had tried so hard to be recognized, to be the good daughter, the good sister. But in the end, she had only accepted the role of being the background for the comfort of others. She turned back, opened her laptop, downloaded the photos she had taken during the trip. Climbing an old brick wall, the sunset over the Arno, a small espresso in the middle of a quiet afternoon. Each moment was a reminder. She had nothing to prove. She had lived, loved herself enough to know what was worth it. Ariana did not delete the message, but she did not rush to reply either. She needed to see the change, not just in words, but in actions. If they wanted to reconnect, they needed to learn to listen, to admit their mistakes, and to truly respect her as an independent person, not as the sensible child who will always give in. No more of her being the emotional pillar. No more of her having to give in to keep harmony. She set clear boundaries, not out of anger, but out of love for herself. That afternoon, she wrote in her diary, "The road home doesn't always lead back. But if they want to move forward together, they will have to learn to walk on their own 2 feet, no longer relying on each other as before." And for Ariana, that is true love, not based on sacrifice, but on fairness and willingness. A few weeks after returning from Italy, Ariana was making tea in the kitchen late one afternoon when the phone rang. Mom appeared on the screen. She hesitated, then pressed answer. Her mother's voice came back, no longer sharp, no longer demanding, but slow, strangely soft. "Ariana, I think maybe Dad and I were wrong. We shouldn't have replaced you on that trip. I thought you would understand. But now I realize that wasn't true. Chloe understands too. She said she was selfish." Her voice trailed off, not because she was emotional, but because for the first time she didn't know how to approach her daughter when she no longer assumed she would forgive immediately. Ariana sat down in her chair, her back straight, her eyes looking out the window where the sunset was coloring the sky. She was silent for a few seconds. Then, softly but firmly, she spoke. "Mom, I know it's hard to say, but you need to understand, this has never been just a trip." There was silence on the other end of the phone. Ariana continued, "It's been my whole life. I've been put on the back burner. When Chloe failed, I had to put my plans on hold to help her. When Mom and Dad needed financial help, I had to send money regularly. No one asked if I had enough. When I succeeded, it was, Ariana can do it, of course. And when Chloe only did half of it, we threw a party." A sigh escaped her mother, but no longer interrupted. Ariana didn't wait for an explanation. "I'm not saying this to blame. I just want you to understand, I've been holding on for too long. Being the good daughter, the understanding sister, the firefighter in the family. But I'm human. I need to be prioritized, listened to, respected." Her voice was not high, but it was as clear as ice water dropped into a glass. "If you really want this relationship to work, start with respect. Not conditional love, not forgiveness, but seeing you as an adult and independent person, not a default part of the old mold our family has imposed on us for years." On the other side, her mother was silent for a long time. Then, her voice, softly, "I understand, or at least, I'm trying to understand, and I'm willing to change if you give me the chance." Ariana nodded slightly, even though she knew her mother couldn't see. "I won't close the door, but it's not open unconditionally anymore." After the phone hung up, Ariana sat quietly, holding her now cold cup of tea. She didn't cry. She didn't feel relieved right away. But deep down, something had been put right. And this time, she chose her own place. Ariana had been the girl who waited for a compliment, a look of approval, a hug from her parents whenever she did something good. For years, she had lived as if she had to be cute to be worthy of love, to be useful to be worthy of existence in that family. But what had happened, from that summer morning when Chloe stepped in to take her place on the dream trip, to the phone calls filled with blame and lack of understanding, had made Ariana look back at everything. She was no longer the child who craved choices, no longer the girl who kept her head down for fear of offending anyone, no longer the shadow patiently standing in the background, waiting for her turn to be heard. She was a different woman now, a version of herself that she had once doubted she could become. Someone who knew how to set boundaries and didn't feel guilty about it. Someone who could say no without needing a lengthy explanation. Ariana lives intentionally, not to prove anything to her family or society, but for her own inner peace. Every choice, from the cup of coffee she drinks in the morning to the decision to leave toxic relationships, is an affirmation that she has the right to live for herself. She learns not to run after other people's expectations, not to cling to those who only know how to love conditionally. She understands that she cannot choose where she was born, She cannot change the bias in her parents' eyes or the way they always put Chloe at the center of all their priorities. But she can choose how she lives, how to nurture the true values in her heart. And she chose freedom. Freedom from the role of the burdened child, from the role of the silent sufferer. She chooses self-respect, silence, two-way relationships, and peaceful afternoons without waiting for an apology text to feel relieved. And that is enough. Because sometimes maturity is not about forgiving all mistakes, but being strong enough not to let them happen again. Not letting anyone, even those you once loved the most, cross the line of respect for yourself. Ariana has become the woman that little girl always needed. And today it is no one else but herself who holds that child. Not to soothe, but to remind you are worth it. And now I live just like that.